I'm 25, and up until 2 months ago, life was finally settling down in a way that made me feel okay, maybe even hopeful. I had just moved back in with my parents temporarily while I saved for a place of my own. It wasn't ideal, but the arrangement worked. I paid rent, kept to myself, worked full-time from my upstairs bedroom, and honestly, things were peaceful. Until my younger brother, Ryan, came back. He's 22, and to say he's been figuring things out would be generous. He's been through 3 different colleges, never sticking around long enough to finish anything. The last time we spoke before he moved back in, he was planning to start a dropshipping business. Before that, it was crypto. Before that, he thought he was going to be a music producer. You get the idea. He showed up with no warning, just a duffel bag and a lazy shrug. Mom welcomed him with open arms, and Dad grumbled but didn't say no. I was the only one who seemed confused about the whole thing, especially since he'd burned a lot of bridges last time he lived at home. But I didn't fight it. He was family. What was I going to do? Tell them to kick him out? The first week was fine. He mostly stayed in the basement, sleeping till noon and binging Netflix all night. Then he started poking around upstairs more. Borrowing things. Using my shampoo, eating my groceries, asking to use my laptop for a sec when his phone was charging. Just little stuff, but it added up. I didn't say anything at first. I didn't want to be that person. Then my AirPods went missing. I searched everywhere. Under the bed, between couch cushions, even in the laundry basket. Nothing. I asked Ryan if he'd seen them, and he said no. Swore up and down he hadn't touched them. But something in his voice made my stomach twist. It was that casual indifference, the same tone he used when he got fired from a part-time job and claimed he never liked it anyway. I chalked it up to bad luck. Maybe I lost them outside. Maybe I left them at the gym. I convinced myself not to overthink it. Then my favorite hoodie disappeared. A couple of days later, my debit card wasn't in my wallet. And that's when I knew something was really wrong. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I knew I hadn't used my debit card in 2 days. I paid for groceries with it Monday night, came home, tossed my wallet on the dresser like I always do, and by Wednesday morning, it was gone. Just the card. Everything else was still there. Not stolen, not misplaced, just quietly missing. I checked my banking app. There were 3 charges. A $6.49 transaction at a gas station nearby. A $21.95 Uber Eats order. And a $39 purchase from some online gaming site I'd never heard of. All between 1 and 3 a.m. It was like getting slapped in the face with proof. I knew I hadn't made those purchases. I knew someone else in this house had. And only one person was up all night playing games and scrolling on his phone. Ryan. I didn't want to accuse him without giving him a chance to explain. I even told myself maybe it was some weird glitch, or fraud, or maybe my card info had been skimmed. But deep down, I already knew. That night, I waited until he was upstairs getting snacks. He left his phone on the counter, screen unlocked. I shouldn't have looked, I know I shouldn't have, but I did. I tapped into the Uber Eats app. There it was. The order. Same time, same meal, same address. I snapped a picture with my phone before he came back. I thought that would be enough. I thought if I just showed my parents the photo and the charges, they'd sit him down, talk to him, and we could sort this out like a normal family. I wasn't looking to ruin his life, I just wanted him to stop. But that's not what happened. I brought it up to my mom the next morning while we were alone in the kitchen. I showed her the charges, the photo, told her everything. She looked at the evidence, and then she looked at me like I was the problem. She said Ryan had been going through a hard time, that I shouldn't make wild accusations, that maybe I had made the purchases and forgot. I wanted to scream. She wouldn't even show the photo to my dad. Said it would start a fight we don't need right now. I was stunned, furious. I kept thinking, he stole from me. He used my money, lied about it, and now you're pretending like it never happened? I thought maybe Dad would back me up if I showed him directly, but before I could, Ryan beat me to it. He told Dad that I'd been acting weird, that I accused him of stealing just because he borrowed a hoodie one time. I walked in on the conversation mid-sentence. He was playing the victim so well, I almost believed him myself. I stood there, staring at both of them. My dad just nodded slowly, like Ryan made sense. That's when I realized I was completely alone in my own house. They were choosing him, again. And he knew it. When Ryan caught me watching from the hallway, he smirked. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, something was off the moment I opened my eyes. My laptop was unplugged. I always leave it charging overnight on my desk. The cord was still there, but the charger was gone. At first, I thought maybe I'd moved it and forgotten again, like my mom suggested, but no. I searched every inch of my room, checked under the bed, inside drawers, even under the pile of clean laundry I hadn't folded yet. Nothing. I walked downstairs and found Ryan in the kitchen, eating cereal straight out of the mixing bowl. His hair was messy, he looked half asleep, and for a second, I hesitated. Until I saw it. My laptop charger, sticking out of the outlet behind the couch in the living room. I didn't say a word. I just walked over and yanked it out of the wall. Ryan didn't flinch. He didn't apologize. He just kept eating and said, without even looking up, that I shouldn't leave my stuff everywhere if I don't want it borrowed. Borrowed. As if taking my things without asking, in the middle of the night, was normal now. That's when I realized, he wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. He wanted me to know. He knew I couldn't prove the missing AirPods, or the hoodie, or the debit card charges. And now he was taking things right out in the open, because he knew no one would stop him. That night, I locked my bedroom door for the first time since moving home. I wish I could say I felt safer, but I didn't. In fact, I barely slept. I kept thinking I heard noises, footsteps outside my door, someone turning the knob, something shifting in the hallway. Every creak in the floor made my heart pound. The next day, I installed a doorstop alarm I bought online. It lets out a piercing screech if anyone tries to open the door. I didn't tell anyone about it. Not my parents, and definitely not Ryan. That night, around 2 a.m., I heard the alarm go off. It was loud, startling. I jumped out of bed, heart racing, flipped the light on, and there he was, standing in the hallway in the dark. Ryan. He looked half crazed, caught off guard. He said he was just checking on me, thought he heard something. But when I asked him what he needed, why he was at my door in the middle of the night, he just muttered something and walked off. I didn't sleep again. And the worst part? My parents never even mentioned the alarm. They must have heard it. It was loud enough to wake the whole street. But not a word. I started to wonder if they were pretending like nothing was happening, because it was easier that way. I started to wonder if they were afraid of him too. The next morning, I didn't eat breakfast. I couldn't. My stomach was twisted in knots, and every time I heard Ryan's footsteps on the stairs, I felt my entire body tense up. Something had shifted the night before. That look on his face when the alarm went off wasn't just surprise, it was anger. Resentment. Like I was the problem for locking my door. I needed to get out. So I packed a small bag and told my parents I'd be spending the weekend at a friend's place. It wasn't a lie, exactly. I did crash on her couch for 2 nights, but that wasn't the main reason I left. I needed time to think. And more importantly, I needed to make a plan. If I stayed in that house and waited for my parents to take this seriously, I was going to lose my mind. They were too deep in denial, too used to making excuses for Ryan. Every time I tried to talk about what was happening, my mom would get teary-eyed and say things like he's just struggling, or you two used to be so close. But we weren't close. Not anymore. So I reached out to someone I hadn't talked to in over a year, my cousin Kayla. She and Ryan used to be tight back in high school, but they had a falling out a while back. I never knew why. I just said I needed to ask her something about Ryan. She called me immediately. And what she told me made everything worse. Apparently, Ryan had pulled this same kind of stunt before. Not just with friends, but with family. A few years ago, he'd stayed with their aunt for a mental health break and ended up stealing from her, too. Money, a watch, even some of her prescriptions. But she never pressed charges. The family kept it quiet. Kayla told me that Ryan's real talent wasn't scamming strangers, it was convincing people who loved him to cover for him. That's when it clicked. I wasn't the first, and I probably wouldn't be the last. That night, I sat on my friend's couch, staring at my phone for hours. Scrolling through photos, screenshots, checking security camera options. My friend suggested I set one up in my room. Something discreet. Motion activated. I felt sick even thinking about it. But I knew she was right. Because if Ryan was bold enough to try my door in the middle of the night, what would he do next? I went back home Sunday night with one goal, catch him in the act. I bought the camera the next day. It was small, disguised as a charger block. No blinking lights. No sound. Just a motion-activated lens buried inside a device that looked like something anyone might leave plugged in beside their bed. I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong, that if I had to record the person living across the hall from me, then clearly something was already wrong. Still, my hands shook as I opened the package. It felt like I was crossing a line I couldn't uncross. That night, I waited until everyone was asleep, then plugged it in. I angled it toward my desk and dresser, just enough to catch someone walking into my room or messing with my things. I left the door unlocked on purpose. I hated it, but I had to. The alarm would scare him off. I needed him to feel comfortable enough to do what I knew he was already doing. I barely slept, just lay there, wide awake, pretending. In the morning, the camera was still there. Untouched. I grabbed it, shoved it in my bag, and went to a coffee shop with Wi-Fi to review the footage on my laptop. It took only 20 minutes before my heart dropped into my stomach. At 3:12 a.m., Ryan opened my door. He didn't knock. He didn't hesitate. He walked in like he owned the room. I watched as he stood there for a second, head tilted, looking around like he was deciding what to take. Then he moved to my dresser. He opened the top drawer and pulled something out. I couldn't see what it was at first, but when he turned, the camera caught it in full view. My passport. He took my passport. Not cash. Not electronics. My literal proof of identity. He flipped through the pages, stared at my photo, then stuck it in the pocket of his hoodie and walked out. No hurry. No guilt. Just casual theft. I sat in that cafe shaking, my coffee going cold, watching the loop again and again, trying to make sense of it. Why my passport? Why now? It wasn't until I got back home later that day and opened my top drawer that I realized he hadn't taken it by mistake. There were documents missing. My old checkbook. A bank statement. Even my social security card was gone. Ryan hadn't just been borrowing stuff anymore. He was trying to become me. I couldn't breathe when I saw the drawer. My social security card? Gone. My passport? Gone. My old checkbook with my full name and account number scribbled inside? Missing. That wasn't some impulsive grab. That was calculated. Ryan was stealing my identity. I stood there, staring at the empty drawer, my skin cold and buzzing like I'd been dropped into a freezing bath. It wasn't just about missing headphones or sketchy Uber Eats charges anymore. This was serious. This was criminal. This was dangerous. I didn't know what he was planning, but whatever it wasn't innocent. And the worst part? I knew there was no one in this house who'd believe me. I paced around my room trying to decide what to do. My first instinct was to confront him. March down to the basement, shove the video in his face, demand my stuff back. But I stopped myself. Because suddenly, it hit me, what if he already used it? I rushed to my laptop, fingers shaking as I logged into my bank account. Then I checked my credit cards. My credit score. I went to 3 different identity theft checkers, trying to see if anything new had been opened under my name. At first, everything looked normal. But then, there it was. An inquiry from some random bank in another state. A new account, pending approval. Someone had applied for a credit card using my name, my birthday, my social. I froze. It was already happening. That night, I didn't sleep. Again. I just lay there, feeling like I was living with a stranger wearing my brother's face. He wasn't just a thief. He was becoming something else, someone who didn't even flinch at ruining my entire life for his convenience. I made 2 decisions the next morning. I filed a police report for identity theft. I printed screenshots of the footage and locked them in my car's glove box, just in case. I didn't tell my parents. Not yet. I needed one more night to gather proof, something so undeniable they couldn't ignore it. Because deep down, I already knew. Ryan wasn't finished. And neither was I. I didn't go to work the next day. I called in sick, told my boss I had a migraine, which wasn't even a lie, just standing felt like I'd been hit with a hammer. I spent the morning freezing credit, setting up fraud alerts, calling the bank to flag every account under my name. I was on the phone for hours, repeating the same surreal words. Yes, I believe someone close to me is stealing my identity. They always asked the same question. Do you know who it is? I always answered, yes. It's my younger brother. Saying it out loud never got easier. By the time I was done locking everything down, I felt like my entire life was made of glass. Breakable. Vulnerable. Like one wrong move from him could shatter everything. My finances, my reputation, my credit for years. So that night, I did something that felt stupid and dramatic at the time, but looking back, it might have saved me. I left my bedroom door unlocked again. Camera on. All the drawers looked undisturbed. No sign that anything had been touched since I'd last checked. But I knew he wasn't done. I sat in the dark, headphones in, pretending to sleep, waiting. Around 2:45 a.m., I heard it. My door creaked open. I didn't move. I barely breathed. Through the crack of my eyelid, I saw him, Ryan, tiptoeing into my room, slow and silent, like a predator that already knew the layout of its prey cage. He walked straight to my closet this time. Not my dresser. Not my bag. The closet. He pulled out a storage bin I hadn't touched in months, one that had nothing valuable in it, as far as I remembered. But he crouched beside it, pulled something from his hoodie, and tucked it inside before putting the bin back and slipping out just as quietly as he came in. I waited a full 5 minutes before I got up, heart hammering. I turned on the light and pulled out the bin. What I found wasn't mine. A prepaid phone. A manila envelope stuffed with printouts, bank routing numbers, emails, names I didn't recognize. And then there it was. A fake driver's license. With my face. But not my name. Not my name. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at it. My ears were ringing. My fingers were numb. The camera had caught it all, his face, the item, the hiding spot. He wasn't just stealing my identity anymore. He was building a new one. I didn't sleep. I just sat there on my bed, the fake ID in one hand and my phone in the other, shaking. My brain kept spinning through every possibility. What if he was trying to skip town? Open accounts in my name, get credit, buy something huge? What if he was planning something worse? There was a photo of me on that license. But the name? It wasn't his. Or mine. It was someone else's entirely. Which meant this wasn't just identity theft. It was fraud. On another level. And I was sitting with a box of evidence in my lap, hidden in my bedroom, while the person responsible was just across the hall, probably asleep like nothing was wrong. Like he wasn't building a second life out of lies and stolen details. I made the decision around 4 a.m. I called the detective I'd spoken to when I filed the police report. Left a voicemail and followed up with an email, attaching the photos, the screenshots from the camera footage, and a scanned copy of the fake license. I labeled everything clearly. Timestamps, notes, names. I didn't expect to hear back immediately. It was early. I figured it might take a day or two. But he called me before 9 a.m. His tone was different now. Serious, focused. He said what I'd gathered was far beyond a petty theft situation, and that he was coming by the house that afternoon. He wanted to talk. In person. My stomach sank. Because it was real now. This wasn't just about proving I was right anymore. It was about pressing charges. Opening a formal investigation. Turning my brother into a suspect. I kept waiting for the guilt to hit me. It didn't. When the detective showed up later that day, I met him outside. We sat in his car, and I handed over everything. I didn't leave anything out. I told him about the passport, the credit check, the missing drawer items, the fake name, all of it. I showed him the video of Ryan creeping into my room at night. He asked if I felt safe. That was the only moment I hesitated. Because the truth was, I didn't know anymore. I wanted to say yes, but I realized I didn't actually trust the locks in that house. I didn't trust my parents to back me up if Ryan found out. I didn't trust Ryan to stop, not until someone made him. The detective told me they would investigate quietly first, but that if Ryan had already tried to use any of that fake ID info, or had gotten as far as opening accounts, he could be looking at felony charges. Felony. That word hit like a brick, and I realized there was no turning back. I walked back into the house, quietly, while Ryan was downstairs playing video games. He had no idea. But the walls were closing in. It took 3 days. 3 days of silence. 3 days where I watched Ryan walk around the house like everything was normal, joking with our mom, raiding the fridge, sleeping until noon, glued to his phone late at night. 3 days where I didn't say a word, didn't even look at him unless I had to. 3 days of pretending like I didn't know everything. Like I hadn't already handed the truth to the police. I kept waiting for a knock at the door. A phone call. Something. And then, on the 4th night, it happened, but not how I thought it would. It was 1 a.m. I was in bed, lights off, pretending to sleep when I heard footsteps. Not outside the door, inside my room. The door creaked open, slow. Then it clicked shut. I felt the hairs on my neck stand up before I even opened my eyes. I flicked on the lamp, and there he was. Ryan. Standing in my room. Hands in the pocket of his hoodie. No expression on his face. Just watching me. I didn't speak. Neither did he. Until finally, in a quiet voice, he said, "You think you're clever?" My mouth went dry. He took a step closer, still calm, like we were talking about the weather. Said he'd noticed I was acting different. That I'd been sneaking around. That someone had called him earlier from a number he didn't recognize, but they didn't leave a message. Just silence. And now he was putting the pieces together. Then he laughed. Quiet. Bitter. He said, "You went to the cops." It wasn't a question. I told him not to come any closer. And that's when he snapped. He exploded. Started yelling, loud, pacing, saying I'd ruined his life, that he was finally figuring things out and I'd just destroyed everything because I was jealous, that I always had it easy and couldn't stand to see him build something. He kept going, yelling about how he wasn't doing anything that bad, that he just needed a fresh start, that no one actually got hurt. It was terrifying. Not just what he was saying, but how genuinely convinced he was that he was the victim. I told him flat out that I had video evidence, that the cops had it, that he was being watched now. That's when he really lost it. Screamed that I was dead to him. Said I'd ruined our family. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard it shook the frame. I heard him punching the hallway wall. Heard our mom shouting from her room, confused. Heard my dad wake up, footsteps pounding down the hall. And just like that, it all blew open. The next morning, Ryan was gone. His things? Gone. He'd taken everything, except the envelope I'd turned over to the police. And now? There's a warrant out for his arrest. It's been 6 weeks since that night. Since Ryan stormed out. Since my parents finally had no choice but to see him for who he really was. Since I sat at the kitchen table at 5 a.m., explaining, shaking, what I had found, what I had recorded, and what the police already knew. I wish I could say it ended cleanly. That he was arrested. That justice was served. But it didn't go that way. Ryan vanished. No one's seen him since. The warrant is still active. They traced the fake ID to an attempted account opening at a bank out of state, but he never picked up the card. He left it all behind, his social media, his phone number, even his car. It's still parked outside the house like a monument to unfinished messes. The cops say he'll slip up eventually. Guys like him always do. When he tries to get a job, or file taxes, or rent an apartment. But for now, he's just gone. And I'm left in a house that doesn't feel like home anymore. My parents are fractured. My mom barely speaks. She moves like someone in shock. My dad hasn't said Ryan's name in weeks. He just keeps fixing things, tightening screws, cleaning out the garage like he can scrub the shame away. We all walk around each other like ghosts. They never apologized. Not really. I don't think they know how. They just look at me differently now. With this strange, painful respect. Like they finally realize I was right, but they'd give anything not to be. As for me, I moved out. I didn't even wait for the end of the month. I found a tiny one-bedroom, signed the lease in a blur, and packed every single thing I owned in 3 days flat. I didn't tell them until the truck was running. They didn't fight it. I sleep with the door locked now. Out of habit. I check my bank account every morning. I have a fraud alert on every piece of my identity, and a drawer full of certified copies of documents I never thought I'd need to keep that close. Because the truth is, I don't know if Ryan's done. People like him don't stop. They disappear. They rebrand. They come back wearing new names, new smiles, new stories. And the next time I hear from him might be through a stranger calling to collect a debt I never owed. But if that happens, I'll be ready. Because I stopped being scared the night he looked me in the eye and called me the problem. That's the night I realized. You can't save someone who sees your boundaries as betrayal. And sometimes, family isn't something you fix. It's something you survive. Update, 2 weeks later. I just got an email from an apartment complex in Arizona. Someone applied for a lease using my name and social. They included a scanned copy of a fake ID. Same face, different name. But this time, the manager flagged it. And the cops are already on their way. I don't know if this is finally the end of it, but it feels like the beginning of my freedom.